I'm also looking for the coming thing.
Yeah, but what is that?
A bounty hunter and his buddies have adventures in the Old West, but it's an Old West littered with knowing looks, nods, winks, and lots of things invented for the first time.
Want a ride?
And there are also some mysterious orbs. I swear I once had some mysterious orbs, but they went away with antibiotics. The Adventures of Brisco County Jr.
I told you to wait outside, and this isn't the first time we've had this discussion.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. was a 1993 adventure series that ran for one season on the Fox network in the US. Despite only 27 episodes having been made, it is a series that seems to have stuck in the minds of those who watched it. They weren't just fond of it, they really liked it.
I like the attention, but the tension part is killing me.
Brisco County was one of a very large number of genre series bought by the Fox network and then cancelled by the end of the first season. One of those shows that quickly found an adoring audience who carried a torch for the series. And also where Fox was concerned, the show had fans that held on to a grudge longer than Mark Twain's beef with Newman.
Do you make up these little speeches in advance and then memorize them?
It's a Western adventure series that's also a comedy with a smattering of knowing science fiction, much like the failed movies Desperado, The Isaac Newton Adventures, and The Chronicles of Calamity Jane Austen.
You remember our cousin Ed?
One who married Aunt Miriam?
I thought he married his mother.
That's what I said.
US Marshal Brisco County Sr. had captured the desperado John Bly and his gang of villains, miscreants, and general-purpose scoundrels. They escape, killing Marshall County in the process. His son, Brisco County Jr., is offered the task of hunting down Bly and his gang by the robber barons of the Westerfield Club, with lawyer Socrates Poole acting as a go-between.
They do not like to be called robber barons, you know.
Well, of course they don't. It isn't exactly a compliment.
In the first episode, Brisco County Jr. embarks on his mission to bring Bly and his group to justice, where he'll meet his rival, Lord Bowler, singer Dixie Cousins, inventor Professor Wickwire, as well as tangling with Bly, Big Smith, and Pete Hutter.
Right through the ropes. Me first, Common, me first.
Hey, don't confuse my horse.
Meanwhile, a mysterious orb has been found where it will endow people with superhuman strength, among other things. The government wants the orbs. The robber barons want the orbs. Bly's after them. Brisco's after Bly, so of course it makes sense for Brisco to have a side hustle recovering the orbs before Bly. At this stage, the orbs are a mystical item. We will later learn that there were originally 3, but only 2 remain. These remaining orbs will change hands in the Adventures of Brisco County Jr. more often than a 2003 Toyota Corolla that's been the first car for around 15 different teenagers. That car has 400,000 miles on the clock, no rear fender, and all 4 wheels are running Space Saver donuts. They can be used as a weapon, that's the orbs, not the Corolla, or they can restore life, such as when a dying Brisco is brought back from the brink of death by an orb.
Well done.
No, rare.
Brisco County Jr. was the Harvard-educated son of the famous lawman, but Jr. had given up practicing law after a year to become a bounty hunter. He was one of the fastest guns in the West, with an even faster mouth, though Brisco doesn't come off as a wise-ass gunslinger.
Nice form.
Throwing darts is easy.
Who said anything about darts?
He prefers to use his brains to solve problems. He's the sort to ask questions first and shoot later. Me, on the other hand, I prefer to multitask and shoot and ask questions at the same time, though I never seem to get a satisfactory answer.
I don't get it.
Brisco is also interested in the coming thing, where he's certain that technological advances of the fast-approaching new century would make things interesting.
What's the matter with Common?
He thinks we're being followed.
Brisco's horse, Comet, is the second smartest thing on 4 legs, next to Marie and Pierre Curie having a Nuna. Comet can understand human speech and has an easily bruised ego.
I don't want Comet to know about this.
So whatever you do, don't talk about motorized transport, especially CARS. Don't worry, horses can't spell. Hang on, let's do a test. NEIGH. Holy shit.
You'll have to excuse Comet. He doesn't know he's a horse.
Bruce Campbell had become a genre favourite after co-producing and starring in Sam Raimi's Evil Dead films as Ash Williams. While he'd appear in many films during the 1980s, it was usually in a supporting role or in a film with an ultra-low budget, or just as often, a supporting role in a film with an ultra-low budget.
Until we meet again.
Brisco County Jr. would be a big break for him, where Fox had touted Campbell as a huge television star in the making. To cut a long story short, Bruce Campbell did not become a huge television star.
How does $5,000 cash sound, Mr. Bowler?
God bless America.
Lord Bowler is an excellent tracker, as well as the world's second grumpiest bounty hunter, who starts off as a bitter rival to Brisco.
That's a completely fictitious title, I assume.
No, I just made it up.
Julius Carry's character would often find himself with the same target as Brisco, and the pair would often have to put aside their differences to work together.
Did you actually go up to Hart Canyon?
There was bees up there.
The relationship between Bowler and Brisco would mellow over the course of the series, starting with the pair developing a begrudging respect for each other, which would lead to friendship and a less ad hoc partnership.
I work alone.
So do I.
Well, then it's settled.
Bowler was still ornery, but he and Brisco had become good buddies.
This is getting more interesting by the minute.
We're never shown Brisco's home base, but Bowler had invested his earnings well and has bought himself a fancy house with a butler, where he can indulge in his interest in fineries and the like.
Truth is, Brisco, leaving you the best thing ever happened to me.
Bowler often has one setting: intense.
All right, get on with it.
Christian Clemenson played Socrates Poole, a lawyer and Brisco's liaison with the robber barons.
I don't mind telling you, I feel a little nervous.
Poole was not an action man, though he'd often end up accompanying Brisco County on his missions. As a lawyer rather than a lawman, he usually left the action up to the others, since he was mostly ineffective with anything bigger than a pen.
Watch the glasses.
Though they do say that the pen is mightier than the sword, but that's really only metaphorically. A literal confrontation between a 19th century lawyer wielding a pen and some barely literate henchman armed with a sharpened scimitar, and my money's on the guy who can barely read.
You're joking. I never joke.
Later in the series, Poole will become a federal officer, where Brisco and Bowler will be occasionally working for the government rather than the robber barons, because apparently, at one time, there was a difference.
You're a convicted felon.
There are also the characters who would appear semi-regularly.
I found out he's going to use the cannon to get the orb.
The orb?
Of course, what else?
Dixie Cousins toured the West singing in saloons, where she would cross paths with Brisco from time to time, with the pair becoming closer each time. Or they would be if only they were able to sync up their lives.
Don't you get it? He's somebody.
She's on the edge of respectability, where it's not always 100% apparent that she's going to be on Brisco's side. Kelly Rutherford enjoyed playing a character that was a mix of Madeline Kahn's character from Blazing Saddles and Mae West. Dixie is the closest thing the series had to a regular female cast member, where she's part love interest, part agent of chaos. Brisco and Dixie will each have other brief dalliances along the way as their relationship heats up and cools down like alternate mouthfuls of chicken vindaloo and vanilla ice cream.
Where will I see you next?
Well, I guess that's up to you, Dix.
Whether you give their relationship a cute nickname probably depends on which portmanteau you prefer: Dixie County or Disco Cousins.
I needed someone to pass gas for me.
Professor Albert Wickwire was a scientist in whatever field you needed that week, where he was often inventing cutting-edge technology.
I'd like to show you my latest invention.
Well, cutting edge for 1893. John Astin was cast because, well, who wouldn't want to work with Gomez Adams?
Playing the Faulkner counter gambit, huh? You're really feeling your oats today.
The latter part of the season has a new recurring character, Whip Morgan, a card sharp played by Jeff Phillips. Whip is young and cocky, a little overconfident, but his ability to clean out anybody dumb enough to take him on at poker is almost unmatched in the Old West.
Wouldn't be here if I wasn't.
Many episodes would feature a member of John Bly's gang as that week's villain, but one broke away to become a more developed character on his own: John Pyper-Ferguson's buffoonish villain, Pete Hutter.
Thick, bold strokes of vibrant color. Call themselves impressionists.
He was a cartoonish tough guy who was fond of mangling the English language and was very protective of his peace.
Touching my peace.
What?
You had to keep your hands off Pete's peace.
Later, baby. We don't have to do this in public.
Billy Drago played the series' main villain, the devilishly evil Bly. Though I don't know how you would get away with casting Billy Drago as the milquetoast forensic accountant, Miles Blabberboobabee. Bly's obsessed with finding the orbs, or obsessed, where he wants the power of the orbs for his own ends, which would be less of a problem if he wasn't also a bit of a psychopath. Bly turned out not to be just a cowboy killer, but was a time traveler from the future, looking to take an orb-shaped souvenir back with him to his own era. To rule the world! Though on the bright side, it's good that he at least knows what he wants to do with his life.
What's going on here? Are you for real or am I just going crazy?
As a Western series, it's not quite a throwback to Western movies of the 50s, nor is it remotely like the American revisionist Westerns of the 90s. Now, the best way to describe the difference between a 50s Western and a 90s Western, in the latter, everybody looks like they could do with a shave and a bath.
This is silly. I'm Socrates. What's your first name?
Ginger. But that's on a need-to-know basis.
With Brisco on the trail of Bligh's gang, the Orbs, and other targets, there'll be many adventures where Brisco, Bowler, and Socrates will encounter various elements that would seem out of place in a Western. Things like time travel, motor vehicles, rockets, airships, hygiene. Some episodes have no overt fantasy elements other than anachronistic technology and ideas, like regular bathing.
Now this is the coming thing.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. is a show in 2 phases. There are the first 20 episodes that revolve around the hunt for Bligh and his gang, and by association, the Orbs. And then there is the final batch of episodes that, for the most part, have a slightly less manic vibe to them. In that first phase, which is probably what you remember, most episodes are Western adventure stories full of stunts and action, but often with some story element that would keep the series from relying on Western series cliches.
Launch.
Some villains steal experimental steel horses, which we would know as motorcycles. Landlocked pirates terrorize a small town. The series budget couldn't support a galleon, so instead they ride a carriage.
That's right, Bill.
I'm Bill. He's Phil.
But I guess that makes you Will.
A missing experimental horseless carriage looks suspiciously like a tank. While investigating, an injured Brisco ends up in a town where there are only women, though history does not record whether the whiny neckbeards in the next town spent all of their time complaining about the, quote, females ruining everything for them.
I need some fishing line, coat hanger, soap, and some cheese. Cheese? I'm hungry.
Professor Wickwire has any number of inventions on the go, such as a rocket and a diving suit, rubber bullets, and an airship. Of course, history does not record where Wickwire was at with Wi-Fi.
It also carried an object known as the orb.
Brisco County starts somewhere that's not all that obvious until you realise, oh yeah. Jeffrey Boehm had written for Lethal Weapon 2 and 3, but it was his script for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade that sparked the creation of Brisco County. Now, to paraphrase and condense a story by grossly oversimplifying it, Fox Network executive Bob Greenblatt went to Boehm, pointed at a poster of Last Crusade and said, I'll have one of those. He wanted something with the same sensibilities as Last Crusade, based on the breakneck pace of old serials, with a lot of charm and snappy banter between its 2 leads. Harrison, something or other, and Sean, watch his face, bickering while chasing something or being chased by something else. Brisco County would even have a mystical object for the main characters to pursue.
As soon as I win my money back here, I'll go find them, okay?
Never mind.
Carlton Cuse had fewer credits when he joined the project as co-creator, where he and Boehm would split the duties of executive producer, as well as each writing some episodes. Cuse also appears a few times in a small role.
All right, Comet, you call it. Heads or tails? Tails it is.
Bruce Campbell had only done a little television before Brisco, but it opened up his eyes as to the pace of filming. As he was in most scenes, shooting days were often long and exhausting, and then he'd have to spend some of his weekend making personal appearances to try and raise the series' profile. Before being cast, he'd picked up some basics of horsemanship on Army of Darkness, but had to learn how to work with horses properly for a show where he was meant to be an expert rider. Horse riding isn't hard, unless of course you're the horse.
Now, Comet, go!
In Brisco County Jr., there were multiple horses used for different scenes.
And I don't care for that tone.
There was a horse for close-up tricks, a horse for riding, and a horse is of course, just there so we can reference an old sitcom.
Where's Brisco?
Huh? Who said that?
Me. Coming.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. wasn't the first series to mix the Western with other genres.
Any favorites? I hated every one of them.
The 1960s adventure series Wild Wild West mixed spy capers with a little science fiction in a Western setting, which would result in a very Brisco-like movie in 1999. Not long after Brisco County's cancellation, another series would have an even shorter run in 1995, Legend, starring Richard Dean Anderson and John Delancey, where that show was a similar type of anachronistic Western, though one that was not really on the same level as Brisco County Jr. You know, Bruce Campbell's quite tall, so also not on the level of Brisco. Tom Cruise without a scissor lift.
Things are looking up.
The series would mainly be shot on sound stages or Warner Brothers backlot or the studio's ranch or other locations including Bronson Canyon, which has been filmed more times than the car that crashed into the parking lot at a dashcam convention.
You've just got all the answers for everything, don't you?
The aim was to shoot each episode within a 7-day schedule, which is ambitious for a show with so many action scenes, stunts, special effects, and of course, as it's a Western, there are lots of HORSES. It's an early 90s show, so the episodes were filmed and had any special effects added during post-production where it was mastered on standard definition videotape. Means the show will look really soft and blurry. As a one-season series, it's unfortunately probably going to stay that way. If that ever changes and the series is properly remastered in HD, I am sure going to be up for watching Brisco County again.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Most of the time when we review these series that only lasted a season or less, we'll often see a pattern where a show has a very promising pilot, but then will very quickly lose what was unique about the premise and instead just become a very stock standard action adventure series with all of the same plots that featured in every other stock action adventure series. Another common factor, they all just seem to run out of steam creatively very quickly, no matter how much we like the basic idea, the characters or the cast. Brisco County was different. Its cancellation hurt because the series did seem like it could sustain itself for several more seasons. It was just not meant to be.
It's not going to happen again.
The orbs and the hunt for Bly had been set up as a continuing thread that could conceivably run for the length of the series. Fox of course had other ideas and their notes to producers could often be contradictory. An expensive series that was expected to draw in big ratings rather than okay ratings was the sort of thing that would attract a lot of notes from the network. One note might say, add more science fiction, while the next might say, add less science fiction. But whatever the amount of science fiction in any given script, the notes invariably stressed that the level was not right. In this situation, second guessing comes into play.
Well, the way you pronounce your S's. Thori?
Like any series, there would be running changes. Brisco and Bowler's mainly comedically antagonistic relationship, where they're often forced into working together, would be softened, mainly because the actors worked so well together. Having them work as actual partners rather than rivals also meant that an episode didn't have to invent yet another way to put these two people together. Bowler's temper still flares, but it's generally a good-natured rivalry between the two.
Grab the bridle of the lead horse and rein them into a safe and steady stop. Or we could jump.
While the original pilot had rated decently, the weekly episodes did not pull in the viewers needed for such an expensive show. While Fox had given the show a full season order, there was some tinkering along the way, where the science fiction plot threads were wrapped up in the 20th episode.
Too confusing.
The rest of the season was strictly a Western adventure series, but one with quirky characters. There were still elements that would be out of place in a stock standard Western, but anything remotely fantastical was gone.
Why'd you change it?
Which long story you want to hear? This one or that one?
All right, I'm sorry.
Of course, if you're interested, there's still my Brisco County fanfic crossover with Flash Gordon, King of the Impossible.
Brisco's alive?
There's also a feeling that the last tranche of episodes was a series made under reduced circumstances, where there are smaller action set pieces, fewer stunts involving HORSES, and episodes that didn't stray too far from Western-themed backlots. Whether the lesser budget was an attempt to reformat the show to prove to the network or the studio that the show could be made cheaper, or they were just running down the clock to an inevitable winding down of the series, it's hard to say. Also hard to say, any money, the enemy and enemy may know me, and any day now may mow me down.
Don't quit your day job just yet.
Of course, the two episodes that ended the series did bring back some of the fantasy and the bling. Fox had expected Brisco to be a huge hit, with Campbell tipped to be a huge television star, but none of that happened. Some of the blame was put on the show's time slot on Fox, Friday nights at 8 p.m, but that doesn't account for the show's follow-up, The X-Files, being the breakout genre series of that season. That show's ratings were a fair bit higher than Brisco County's, and increased during the season compared to the decline in viewers for Brisco County.
Yeah, the future sure looks bright.
Fox had only just started broadcasting over 7 days, cancelled Brisco in 1994, along with the majority of its new series.
What a shock.
Now, there's a network that needs to change the light bulb from green to red.
They don't even care about him.
Hit network TV westerns in the 90s did exist, but they were few and far between.
She just killed my 4 best men, Pete and Scratchy, and
those other two.
More westerns were syndicated or even made for international audiences, the same way that spaghetti westerns were made in Spain and Italy for European markets. It seems that Fox viewers were not drawn to a big-budget, genre-bending western series, so rather than talk about 6 seasons and a movie, we have 27 episodes of Brisco County to watch again and again.
Take it.
Brisco County was an action-packed show, but not an especially violent one compared to, say, The X-Files. In Brisco County there was a little bit of blood and a few deaths, but Brisco did not gun anybody down, preferring to beat his foes with ricochets. Also, it must be said that the coroner possibly felt silly about putting death by ricochet on a death certificate, so I think Brisco got away with it.
Case is dismissed!
One of the show's strengths is an abundance of charm. Now, it's a show that could charm the pants of somebody who's accidentally coated the inside of the Levi 501s with extra strong superglue. Look, I know that is oddly specific. I just don't want to say any more right now.
Is this real?
Several composers contributed to the weekly episodes, where the show had a lovely, expansive score, often with live players mixed in with synthesizers and samplers, though towards the end of the run, most of the live players seemed to have gone on an extended vacation in favour of orchestral mock-ups. Randy Edelman had composed a rousing theme tune for the series, which perfectly encapsulates the Western adventure feel. While the show only lasted a year, the theme tune was later repurposed for some sports coverage in the US.
Pete, you might want to put that gun down.
Brisco County Jr. has solid episodes and some very good installments, and even the lesser shows are mostly very enjoyable. The series pulls off the magical and difficult trick of keeping the quality consistent, which is not something that a lot of one-season wonders managed. Also, speaking of quality, for legal reasons, I had to desist from referring to my side hustle homemade cookies as chocolate chip, because technically, they did contain more iron filings than actual chocolate.
I can outshoot, outride, outspit, outfight, outthink John Bly or any one of his gang.
The pilot set Brisco on his way, with Brisco Sr. played by Ali Ermey. Brisco's on the trail of Bly and his subordinates Big Smith and Pete Hutter.
Existential thought doesn't hold much water out here in the territories.
He'll meet all of the people who will become both his best friends and his best enemies. He'll catch up with Big Smith and one of the orbs by riding a rocket along a railway. Now that's obviously the express with no stops and no off-peak discount.
And what are those notches on your bedpost?
Just a few scratches that occurred during shipping.
In other episodes, Brisco is accused of murder and is hunted down by another bounty hunter, Crystal Hawks, played by Sheena Easton, though at no point does either try to catch the morning train.
Are you lonesome tonight?
A couple of episodes had possibly my favourite side character, Aaron Viva, a sheriff fond of inadvertently channeling Elvis.
I'm all shook up.
Where he's constantly quoting from the future king,
In the ghetto.
as well as potentially dying the exact same way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Professor Coles had been studying the power of an orb and used it to make an elixir to give back his elderly mother her youth. Though of course, Bly has other plans. Spoilers, it's not to use the orb to create a new line of age-defying skincare products.
Oh, I've been meaning to tell you, those pockets don't work.
What do you mean?
Well, the cut, it's all wrong.
There are random exes showing up in some episodes, or Socrates' sister, or other people from Brisco and Bowler's respective pasts. Socrates thinks he's gotten a girlfriend, played by Andrea Parker, though she turns out to be first a spy and then a stalker.
I used the orb here to pay you a little visit from the future.
At one point, Brisco is visited by a vision of his father, where the two speak more than they did when Brisco Sr. was alive.
But I did the best I could, son.
A bounty hunters convention turns into a whodunit after the attendees are bumped off one by one. One episode involved Brisco and company staying in a spooky hotel where any resemblance to Psycho is completely superficial and not legally infringing in any way.
Rough night.
Other random guest stars: Robert Picardo, Stuart Whitman, David Warner, Deborah Jo Rupp, Ian Ogilvy, James Hong, Xander Berkeley, Denise Crosby, Judson Scott, and Richard Hurd as the guy on the Monopoly box, though there are other familiar faces dotted throughout the show.
Why are you wasting my time with all of this?
Those network notes to reduce the amount of science fiction would result in the 20th episode taking the trouble to wrap up all and sundry, any plot threads started in the Brisco County pilot.
He traveled to the past via time machine, stole the orbs, brought them back, and used them to rule the world.
It's the last gasp of both the orb storyline and of Bly. He'd been trapped in an orb, but a naked time traveler from the year 5502 visits Brisco to tell him that Bly will be released and will take an orb back to his own time, where he will rule the world. And when a psychopath rules the world, they also tend to ruin the world. Brisco manages to kill Bly, but Bowler ends up dead, and so Brisco uses one orb to travel back in time to collect the other orb from his earlier self, a conversation we saw from the other Brisco's perspective earlier in the season. Brisco saves Bowler and deals with Bly, and it's at this point that almost every element of science fiction in Brisco County Jr. was gone. There would still be anachronisms and knowing winks about the future, but the rest of the season would mainly be a fairly standard action-adventure series western, where it does seem like the money was tighter than before. After episode 20, it's not as if the quality of the show fell off a cliff, though it's clear if they had wanted to throw something off a cliff, they probably wouldn't have that in the show's budget.
A few more, Bowler. I'm close. I can feel it.
That run of smaller episodes with smaller stakes and smaller action scenes would help pay for the last 2 episodes of the season and of the series. The series finale was an epic 2-part story. In High Treason Part 1, Bowler and Brisco face an army court-martial after a rescue mission turned out to be more complicated. A woman was apparently abducted and the US government wants to avoid a war with Mexico, which is quaint. So Brisco and Bowler assemble a team to retrieve her. Professor Wickwire, Whip Morgan, Sheriff Viva, and Pete Hutter. Except it turns out the woman wasn't actually abducted, she was running off with her supposed abductor, and the whole thing was part of a ploy by a rogue general to start a war to help with his presidential ambitions. Brisco and Bowler's court-martial doesn't go all that well, and the pair are sentenced to die. And in a series that generally kept things, escapist, they don't escapist. The end of Part 1 does get a little real.
Previously on Brisco County.
So with that, you would think that Part 2 was just a 45-minute one-er of a pair of tombstones, except that's reckoning without Professor Wickwire's latest invention.
Rubber bullets!
Pull the old switcheroo!
And for a show that had quietly swept away any of the fantasy elements, lest viewers think that this was anything other than a western, our characters travel in Wickwire's other latest invention, the airship.
If I sell him just one airship, it'll be a good year.
While the dialogue seems to think the show would probably return,
well, maybe after a brief hiatus.
It didn't. But as a way to end the series, these last 2 episodes work really, really well.
That's right.
The cast would go on to work extensively in film and television, though for some, few roles would eclipse the enduring popularity of Brisco County Jr. Bruce Campbell would appear as a guest star in other television shows and movie roles, with memorable recurring roles in Hercules and Xena. He would later star in the syndicated action series Jack of All Trades, while later appearing in a supporting role in the long-running spy series Burn Notice. Co-creator Carlton Cuse would either create, co-create or oversee several major series: Nash Bridges, Martial Law, Lost, Bates Motel. Kelly Rutherford would become fairly well known as a regular on Melrose Place.
You know about the orb.
Don't everybody.
The Adventures of Brisco County Jr. was memorable enough that in 2020, the surviving cast got together for an online reading of the pilot script.
You gave one heck of a performance.
That's a sign that Brisco County Jr. had that special something, that thing that makes us talk about it years later. And if you think Brisco County Jr. was only like, 10 or 15 years ago, check the calendar.
The next thing you know, we're not kids anymore.
But here we are in the year, and we're talking about the Adventures of Brisco County Jr.
Brisco County Jr.?
I remember enjoying the pilot immensely when it was available as a VHS rental, and then later on, I mostly enjoyed the series when it was broadcast where I lived. At the time though, I was aware that the weekly episodes just didn't sustain the brilliance of the pilot. But if that were a crime, almost no television series would ever get past episode 4. That's the one where everyone is stuck in a cable car in a blizzard and they have to reveal their deepest, darkest secrets.
This is good. Except I think you may have confused the flour and the salt.
To me, Bruce Campbell wasn't Ash Williams or Elvis or Autolycus or Sam Axe or the Doorman or even Pizza Papa. He was Brisco County Jr.
Some things never change.
When I revisit the show now, several things strike me. It was a really good series with an excellent cast. It was a show with a healthy budget, well, for most of its run. It was written really well, and there's definitely enough in the idea that a second season could have been good.
We're on the right trail, Comet.
Brisco County has been a show that's popped up in the comments of our other videos for several years, so there is clearly some sort of demand for this channel to cover it. And here it is. So quit your yapping.
He just says things he doesn't mean when he gets upset.
If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.
Try the door now.